Wow. This is really cool. I wish you could see this thing from up here. This is amazing. Well, I got to check my flies up, just to... My wife, she normally checks that for me, But, so you just so you know, I'm one of the guys that, well, I had this whole deal lined up here for today, but for all of those of you being here yesterday, everybody kind of already has given all my material. So, so this morning's just going to really be a little bit of a summary of what we've already heard from so many people. And because when we look at personal development, when we really think about it, personal development is simply about changing lives. And that's what we've had the chance to witness all day yesterday. We saw one changed life after another. And it's all because somebody started where they were. They had a direction and a vision of where they wanted to go and who they wanted to be, and they began moving in that direction. And so that's what it is. It's just being dissatisfied where we're at and wanting something more, wanting something better. What are you personally going to do with this product and this plan? What is your commitment level to work and to promote what we have? So when we really look at it, personal development has to do with changing myself, doesn't it? Because we've all learned through Jim Rohn, whom we're going to have the opportunity to hear today, that for things to change, for things to get better. Now, I don't know about you, see, that saying, I got that the first time back in I think it was 1982 when I first heard that saying. And it got implanted into the frontal lobe of my brain. But when I hear things, I ask myself questions. So I'll write sayings down, and then I go home and I look at them. I actually look at my notes when I go home. And hopefully, you will be taking very good notes here this morning, and especially when you hear Jim. And so I go home and I look at that thing, and it says, for things to change, you've got to change. And I said, well, wait a second, why is that? Why for things to change, I got to change? And then I thought about it. You know why? Because things don't change. People do. See, is there corruption today? Is there injustice today? Is there poverty today? Is there wealth today? Is there exuberant wealth today? Do we have all of those things today? Did we have them 100 years ago? Did we have them 1,000 years ago? 2,000 years ago? Things don't change. But how we respond to the things is what's going to make the difference. One of my mentors says, problems are not the problem. It's how you respond to the problem that's the problem. It'll either be a problem or it could be a profit. And that really kind of depends on us. So if we can go to our do I have the clicker? Oh, I do have it right here. Good. All right. So if we can get this started. So personal development demands change. Right? And change is difficult at any level. Why is that? Because I've got to do something different than I've done before. And anytime we do something different, especially the first time, it's a little difficult until we get accustomed to it. So it's a development. It's a process of development. And so it demands change, but it also then demands choice. Change demands choice, and choice demands commitment. And that's what we want to talk about, this morning. So as we look, now, let's just first of all look at minor change. Many of us have heard the story about the dog that's laying on the nail, right? And the dog's sitting there, it's kind of squirmishing. And every now and then, and you kind of wonder, well, what's wrong with that dog? And he says, well, he's laying on the nail. And they said, well, why doesn't he get off? And it says, well, it doesn't bother him enough yet. You see, and that's really, when we look at things, until the pain of remaining the same where you are today becomes greater than the pain of change, you're not going to change. But when that pain of living in the same house, driving the same car, living the same lifestyle, having the same type of vacations, when the pain of what I'm living with now becomes greater than the pain and the price that it's going to take me to make the changes necessary to make myself better, I won't change. And that's why the one thing that we're always looking for in Herbalife is what? We're simply looking for dissatisfied people. Why do we look for dissatisfied people? Because they're the ones who are most ready to change. So the question, how happy are you with where you are at right now? We just heard a couple of people up here, they were sitting in the back and they got to come sit up front. They had that rare opportunity to have an immediate change. But if they want to sit up here permanently, guess what they got to do? They got to go through the process. They got to go through the process. So there's minor changes, and then there's major changes, right? Now, major changes is different. That's like going from, captive crawling to flying freely. But that's a major change when we look at this little butterfly. Okay? And in order to make that change, see, then they've got to die to the old way to make way for the new way. They've got to die to that old crawling capacity. And the way they do that is they got to go through the process. See, the process of getting rid of the things that slow us down, okay, in order to replace them with the things that will free us up. We've got to get rid of the old habits and replace them with new. And so that's that process. So we've got to figure, okay, what do I need to get rid of? What is it that's slowing me down? What is it that is holding me back? What are those habits? What are those things? What are those thoughts that are holding me back in my making progress with myself? We need to replace those things. You can't just get rid of the old. You've got to replace them with something better. It's an exchange. So the question is, how do I change? Most of us realize we've got to make changes. If I want to go from back there to up here, I got to make changes. If I want to go from 1 diamond to 2 diamonds, I got to make changes. If I want to get to the 5 diamonds, I've got to make changes. If I want to get to the 10 diamonds in the founder circle, I got to make changes. So the question, how do I make those changes? And I just kind of want to walk you through a bit of the process as to how that goes. First thing we need to do in order to change is we got to realize, what is my objective? What is it that I want? Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to have? And it always begins with who I want to be first, because who you are determines what you do, and what you do will determine what you have. So what is it that I want? What is my objective here? See, some people say, well, I want to have a good family life. I want to have vacations. I want to send my kids to a private school. I want to take trips around the world. I want to do all these things with my family. And then they work real hard, and they pour it on, and they work so hard that they forget about the family, and they reach the position of president's team or chairman's club. They reach the position, but by the time they get there, their family's lost because they've neglected their family, they've neglected their kids, and now they have the ability to travel and do all those things, but their family's not with them. See, what I call that is, I call that, it's reaching the goal and missing the objective. President team and above, listen, it will give you an amazing lifestyle. But if you reach the position and you miss the objective, that's sad. Don't do that. Never sacrifice your values. Never sacrifice your values and your integrity to reach the position. because you'll miss the joy of the position. So, how do we do this? We come back, we ask ourselves, okay, if this is my objective, question, why don't I have that now? Why don't I have that now? Well, it's real simple. There's obstacles. Is that right? I mean, for those of you who want to get president's team, why don't you have that now? There's obstacles. About 200,000 of them. Right? Now, some of you have less obstacles than others. Right? So the question is, why don't I have that? You say, okay, well, I need to have these things. So what happens is that now becomes your goal. That's the goal now. Okay, that's where I need to focus my attention. I've got to eliminate the other distractions. Whatever takes me away from that, I've got to get rid of those things and focus on my goal. Now, once I see what my goal is, now I know where to put my time and attention and energies. Question, why don't I have that goal? Simple. Obstacles. Okay, so what are those obstacles? Okay, so now I have my new goal. Now I don't have to worry about that first one. I only need to worry about that second one right there. Because if I can reach that goal, I'll overcome those obstacles, reach the next goal, which will overcome those obstacles, will help me to reach my objective. So question, why don't I have that goal? Obstacles. That becomes my new goal. Hey, question, why don't I have that? Obstacles. You see, and if I can overcome those obstacles and reach that first goal, now I can overcome the next obstacles, so I don't have to be worrying about what's way out there. I only have to worry about what's directly in front of me. Don't worry about all those things and responsibilities I'm going to have when I've got all these things going on in all these countries. Right now, I simply need, in the beginning, what do I have to learn to deal with? I need to learn to deal with getting myself results. Once I've overcome that, now I can get somebody else results. Once I can get somebody else results, now I can teach them how to get somebody results. Once they know how to get somebody results, I just simply need to teach them how they can get other people results. And it's a step-by-step process. So why don't I have that? Why don't I have that? That becomes my goal. Why don't I have that goal? No. See, eventually you work it down. See, Stephen Covey, in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he says, begin with the end in mind. Right? That's what Mark did. And Mark was talking 5 billion a long time ago. Right? So you begin with the end in mind, and then you got to, figure out, why don't we have that? Why don't we have that? Why don't we have that? And you get it down to the point where you've got this goal. And then when you look at that, you say, why don't I have that? And you can answer yourself, there's no reason. It has nothing to do with what I don't have. It has nothing to do with an ability that I don't have. It's not something that I don't have. It's simply something I haven't done. So now the only thing that's preventing that is activities. So now all I have to do is focus in on the activities immediately in front of me in order to reach that first goal. Once I've reached that first goal, I now have the capacity and the ability to overcome the next set of obstacles. And what we have here is now, if you'll begin with the end in mind, if you'll chart that out, what you'll have is you'll now have a step-by-step process of accomplishing your objective. Okay? So, let's take a look. How do we make this a little bit more practical? How many people here would love to be a millionaire? Multi-millionaire? Yeah? Good. So, let's take it to the next step here. If I want to become a millionaire, the idea, that has to do with our character. See, that's what we're looking to develop. We want to develop our character. The idea is to be a millionaire, not have $1 million. Do you realize that 82% of the people who win the lottery and take the cash, 82% of those people are dead broke, worse off than they were before within 7 years? Did you know that? Why is that? Because if you give a poor person $1 million, you know what broke people do with $1 million? They go broke. Because that's what broke people do. Poor people do the things that make them poor. So no matter what you give them, they've got the habits, the abilities, and the characteristics of poor people, so that's what they automatically do. So until they change, all the money in the world isn't going to make any difference for any length of time. You see, until our character changes, it's all temporary. I work with an organization that goes in and helps to rehabilitate prisoners. Now, prisoners are downcast, outcast, people that are shunned, put away. They have a very difficult time when they get out of prison, and it's very, very hard. And as a result of that, I don't know if you realize it, but on average, 50% up to 85 and 90% of the people who are released from prison are back in prison within 3 years. And this organization works with people, and they don't give them activities to follow. They help to develop a new character. And as a result of that, we've seen recidivism rate, the rate of return to prison, go from 87% down as low as 4 and 7 and 10%. Now, how is that? It's not because of the activities that are carried on. It's because their character is changed. So how do we develop a character that's going to coincide with what I want in my life? How am I going to develop the character that coincides with the president's team or chairman's club or founder's circle? It's something that can be developed. The ingredients are there. We just have to be able to develop them. So how do we do that? Well, it really has to do with our attitude. How do we look at things? What is our perspective? If we could see things the way millionaires see things, if we have the same attitude with respect to problems, in other words, we look at problems for a short time and then we begin looking at the solutions. Poor people look at problems, rich people look at solutions. And so it has to do with our attitude, our perspective. What is our outlook? How do we look at things? How do we develop this attitude? What are the obstacles of developing the attitude? It has to do with our habits. What kind of habits do we have? What kind of work habits do we have? See? What are those things that are helping me to get what I want? See? Habits come from actions. Actions come from our thoughts. So where do we develop our thoughts? What are we really thinking about? See, our thoughts, and this is the good news. See, the thoughts come from the things we see, the things we read, the things we hear, and the things we experience. You know what's good about that? You get to choose. See, that's why change, personal development demands change, but change demands choice. See, you have to choose. And it's not that you have to choose, really, it's that you get to choose. You get to choose who you're going to become. You get to choose what kind of life you get to live. I'll never forget Leslie's story. I've told it 1,000,000 times ever since. When she was in New York City in the taxi cab, and there was a bunch of people, and she's sitting in the front seat, and she's talking to this taxi driver, and he's telling about all the different things that are going on in his life, and it's a disaster. And Leslie simply turns and looks at the guy and says, "Hey, buddy, listen, you don't have to live like that anymore. You don't." And wherever you are now, if you're not satisfied with where you are now, you don't have to live like that anymore either. Because you can choose. And so how do we just see? You can choose what you read. You can choose what you hear. what you listen to, what you see, what you experience. Can you believe it? People could have been here this weekend and experienced what you've experienced. Now, you can't explain that to them. You can only experience it. And some people chose not to have this experience, regardless of the information. Regardless of the information. Just the experience of being here and watching the transformation that's taken place to the people's lives who have followed a plan and sought after their dreams. Because why? They chose to look at the right things, read the right materials. Andrew Coleman met Mark and Jillian. How? Because of something they were reading. They were reading about personal development. See, you can choose what you read. You know, some stuff that's out there to read is just poison. Some of these things you see on the magazines when you're going in and out of the stores, I mean, that stuff, it's poison. I mean, it's not good for you, it's bad for you. It's like pouring toxins into the brain. You know, we want to clean the body, but we also have to learn to be able to clean the brain. Right? Some stuff we can read, and it's not necessarily that it's bad for you, it's just that it's not good for you. I call it stuffing. There's no real value to it. So the key is to spend time reading, hearing, listening, and experiencing things that's going to help me, you know, grow personally. Help me to develop the skills that cause me to be a kinder person, a more generous person, with greater skills, greater abilities. All the information. There is no shortage of information. We have an abundance of information. Fact is, we have got to pick and choose even the good stuff that we want to read to get us what we want. Jim Rohn would say, listen, if you want health, what? Study wealth. If you want health, study health. Do you want confidence? Study confidence. Do you want contentment? Study contentment. Do you want joy? Study joy. You can choose. That's why we're unlimited and with respect to what we can accomplish. We simply have to spend our time filling our mind, reading, seeing, hearing, and experiencing the things within the area that I want to develop. And that's how it works. Right? See, but so the bottom line is, because you get to choose, the bottom line of change is choice. We get to choose. You can choose what you read, see, hear, and experience. Who you get to be with, who you spend time with. Okay? Next. This is a duck flying south for the winter. You know why ducks fly south for the winter? Now, I know you say, well, it's because it's warm. Well, that's true, but that's not completely true. See, the reason ducks fly south for the winter isn't just because it's warm, it's because they're ducks. The duck can't say, hey, listen, I'm tired of that long haul south. I think I'm going to build me a cabin here up north and just hang around for the winter. Ducks don't do that. See, ducks can't choose, but you can. You can choose. You make the choice. You make the decision. Right? See, why is it the rich kids come out of poor families? Why do poor kids come out of rich families? Why do good kids come out of bad families? Why do bad kids come out of good families? Because no matter what we do, every individual still has the ability to choose. Mark Hughes didn't come from the best of circumstances. His dad left when he was a baby, raised by his mother and a lot by his grandparents. He had a 9th grade education, no business background. But somebody came along and began to mentor him, to coach him. And because someone took the time and their energy to coach him and mentor him and help him to develop a character of integrity and strong work habits, as a result of people doing that for one person. Every single one of us is in the room today. And you can be that person. You have the opportunity to mentor somebody, to coach somebody, to show them the possibilities. See? So choices lead to priorities. You can't prioritize. If you don't know what you want, there's nothing to prioritize. Okay? Priorities lead to decisions. If you don't have a priority, you don't know what to say yes to or what to say no to. Okay? And the thing is what we've got to learn is we've got to learn to exchange. Initially, we exchange the bad for the good. But we've got to learn also to exchange the good for the better. And when we get to the better, we've got to learn to exchange the better for the best. Now, what many of us don't realize is the good is the enemy of the better. And the better is the enemy of the best. You could be doing good things, but if it doesn't help you to get what you want, it's out, no matter how good it is. Because we only have so much time to accomplish so much. And so we got to pick and choose. Okay? Decisions lead to progress, and progress leads, are you ready for this? More choices. See, I'm at a point now where I've made progress in my life. School bus driver. Here I am, travel the world, millions of dollars. But I'm come to a point even now in my life where it's time for me to make more choices. Is today a time for you to make more choices? Are you ready to make better decisions? See, the idea is we need to give with our abilities. Because all the abilities and all that we have, you heard Michael Johnson say it here, to him who much is given, what? Much is expected. See, what we have and what we've accomplished, it's not just for us. It's for others. Your skills and abilities, they're not for you. They're for others. It's to give away. We've all heard the saying, you know, it's more blessed to what? To give than to. Isn't that interesting? And we all have so much to give. Not only of ourselves, but in a product, in a plan, in a hope, in a future. Right? And so we give with our abilities until we counter difficulties. And then we grow, we grow with the difficulties. We develop, we use those circumstances in our life. And we grow with them until we encounter new abilities. See, you can't go back and change the past. But you can take the lessons of the past and create a new future beginning today. This day, October 30th, 29th, 2000. You can begin today creating a better future with all the experience and lessons that you've learned from your past. See, we have smooth days. They're given to maximize our giving. Rough days are given to maximize our growth. So what I've discovered is we're either giving, growing, or we're going nowhere. So we can choose. We can choose. So, takes commitment. We heard John Tartle yesterday. What did he say when he got started? Did he say, I'm going to try this for a while? He didn't say that, did he? What did John Tartle say? See, we decided we are going to commit. Commit. Mama Me, she said what? When she came back from her first extravaganza, went back to Chinatown in New York, what'd she do with that restaurant? She sold it. What is that called? Commitment. She committed. She burned that bridge. She said, I'm going forward. I'm going to succeed. I will. Not I'll try. Trying's like skydiving. You can't try skydiving. You can't say, okay, listen, I'm going, but if I don't like it, I'm coming back. No, it doesn't work that way. See, I mean, if you're going to go, you're going to go. You got to commit. But when you commit, that's when things happen. That's when things happen. So what we're going to do here now is we've got the opportunity to hear from one of my mentors and from one of the mentors from so many of us here in this room today who's radically changed our lives. And another one of his sayings, he says about a half a dozen things make all the difference in the world. It doesn't take hundreds of things. A half a dozen things can radically change your life. And what's amazing is you've heard every single one of these things that he's going to mention to us already here this week. And yesterday you heard every one of these principles he's going to talk to us about. Now, why is it that you already heard all these principles that he's going to talk to us about? Because everyone who fulfilled those principles had been listening to Jim Rohn. They didn't just hear it, they committed to it. It wasn't a truth that they understood and knew, it was a truth that they applied and did. They made the commitment. They committed to doing it. And that's why all these things are going to sound so familiar. That's why you've heard it from everyone almost who was on the stage in one form or another yesterday. So if you're ever to take notes, I would take notes now and pay very close attention, because it's these principles that you heard yesterday that radically changed these people's lives, who took them from where they were to where they are. We've already seen the impact that this has made. So let's take a look at Jim Rohn, and I'm going to go back and take more notes for about the 115th time myself. So let's see Jim Rohn.